The alien arena was filled with cruel laughter and sharp echoes of boots stomping against the metallic ground. Bright lights burned down on the center stage where a small figure lay broken. It was a young alien girl. Her body was weak, her skin bruised, her voice gone silent. She did not cry anymore because her tears had already dried. The crowd wanted more pain, not mercy. Their voices rose in a wave of hunger, calling for her to be finished. Among them stood a single human. He was not part of their empire, not part of their kind, and not part of their cruelty. His name was Daniel, a wanderer, a traveler who had crossed many worlds. But never had he seen such a sight. His hands trembled slightly as he watched the girl being beaten in front of everyone, her body thrown down again and again. She was just a child, and yet the crowd treated her as an enemy, a toy to be broken until nothing was left. Daniel's heart raced. He had seen battles before. He had seen men die, but this was different. This was not war. This was murder, dressed as entertainment. The guards laughed, raising their weapons and striking her again, showing the crowd how weak she was, how useless she had become. She lay there motionless, her chest barely rising, her eyes staring at the ground. It was as if her soul had already left. The arena master stepped forward, his voice booming. "See this orphan? This disgrace? She belongs to no one and to nothing. She is a symbol of weakness. Let her die here before all of you." The crowd roared in approval, 1,000 voices crashing like thunder. But Daniel felt something else. He felt anger, but more than that, he felt a deep pull in his heart. He should have turned away. He should have kept silent. This was not his world, not his fight. But his feet would not move back. Instead, they moved forward, slowly, step by step, carrying him toward the broken girl. The crowd noticed him and began to whisper. A human was stepping onto the stage. What was he doing? Why was he walking closer? The guards frowned, tightening their grips on their weapons. The arena master glared at him with sharp eyes. "You there," he shouted. "Leave this place. She is not yours to save. She is nothing. Step back." Daniel did not answer. His heart was loud in his chest, louder than the crowd, louder than his fear. He saw the girl's face, pale and fading, her lips slightly open as if whispering something only he could hear. He knelt down beside her, his hands brushing the dust from her skin. She was breathing, but weakly. Each breath, a painful struggle. Guards moved in, shouting at him to stop. One of them raised his weapon, threatening to strike him as well. But Daniel looked up with eyes so cold, so determined, that even the guard hesitated. "She's alive," Daniel said quietly, his voice steady, "and she will not die here." The crowd erupted into noise, some in shock, some in anger. Who was this human to defy their order? Why would anyone care for a broken alien orphan? The arena shook with voices, but Daniel ignored them all. He placed his arm under her frail body and gently lifted her into his embrace. She was so light, so fragile that it felt like holding a shadow. Yet even in her brokenness, he felt the faint beat of her heart against his chest. The girl's eyelids fluttered weakly, and for the briefest moment, she looked at him. Her lips moved, but no words came out, only a faint whisper of breath. Daniel leaned closer, and he thought he heard one word, soft as a dying wind. "Help." Something inside him hardened. He stood tall with her in his arms, facing the entire arena. The master shouted for the guards to stop him, but Daniel had already made his choice. He would not let her die here. The first guard swung his weapon, but Daniel stepped back quickly, avoiding the blow. He moved with purpose, carrying her carefully, as if her life was the most important thing in the galaxy. The crowd booed, some even laughing, thinking he was a fool. Yet others fell silent, watching in disbelief. A single human was standing against them all. Daniel's voice cut through the chaos. "Shame on you. You call this justice? You call this strength? All I see is fear. Fear of one broken child. If this is your empire's pride, then it is weaker than you think." His words echoed, heavy and sharp, silencing many. The arena master's face twisted with fury. "Kill him! Kill them both!" But Daniel had already turned, carrying her toward the exit. His steps were strong, unshaken, though his heart knew the danger. Behind him, the crowd roared like a storm, and guards began to follow. Yet he kept moving, one thought burning in his mind. He would not let her die. And in that single act of defiance, the story began. The story of one human who stood against an empire for the life of a broken girl. Daniel moved through the heavy doors of the arena. The broken alien girl held firmly in his arms. Behind him, the voices of thousands roared with anger. The sound shook the metal walls like a storm. Guards were already rushing after him, their boots echoing like thunder. He knew this was not going to end with a simple walk away. By stepping forward. He had chosen his path, and now there was no turning back. The girl stirred weakly against his chest. Her skin was cold, her breaths shallow, yet she was alive. He could feel her faint heartbeat, fragile but steady, as if it clung to life with all its strength. He looked down at her, whispering quietly, "Hold on. I won't let them finish you." She did not reply, but her fingers twitched slightly, as though she was trying to hold on to him. A warning shout echoed behind him. "Human! Stop now, or you will die with her!" Daniel turned his head and saw 3 guards racing forward with electric spears. Their faces were hard, their eyes filled with cruel duty. But Daniel's face did not change. He knew fear was useless now. If he wanted her to live, he had to fight, even if it cost him everything. He set the girl down gently against the wall and stood tall in front of her. The first guard lunged, thrusting the spear forward. Daniel caught the shaft with both hands, twisted it sharply, and drove his shoulder into the guard's chest. The alien stumbled back, crashing to the floor. The crowd inside the arena roared louder, now spilling into the corridors to see what was happening. The second guard swung at Daniel's head, but he ducked, grabbed the attacker's arm, and smashed his elbow into the alien's jaw. The sound cracked like stone breaking. The guard collapsed, groaning. The last one hesitated for a moment, staring at the human who fought with such raw fury. Daniel's eyes burned, cold and determined, as if he was a storm wrapped in flesh. The guard lunged at him anyway. Daniel sidestepped, grabbed the spear, and yanked it free. With one swift motion, he knocked the weapon against the guard's chest, sending him stumbling into the wall. In less than a minute, 3 guards were on the ground. Breathing hard, Daniel turned back to the girl. She had watched through half-closed eyes, her lips parting as if she wanted to speak. No words came out, only a faint, broken sound. Daniel knelt down and whispered, "I told you, I will not let you die here." He picked her up again and pushed forward through the corridor. Behind him, the alarm systems wailed, red lights flashing across the ceiling. Metal doors slammed shut, cutting off exits. More soldiers were coming, and he knew they would not stop until both of them were dead. The arena master's voice boomed through hidden speakers. "Human, you are a fool. That girl is cursed. She carries nothing but shame and death. Give her up, and perhaps we will spare you." Daniel's jaw tightened. He looked down at the fragile girl in his arms and shook his head. "You broke her. You tried to erase her. But she is alive and she matters. I will not give her back to you." His words were not shouted, but they were sharp enough to cut through the noise. The girl's eyes flickered open, and for the first time she truly looked at him. In her gaze, he saw fear, pain, and something else, hope, faint and fragile, like a candle struggling against the wind. She whispered so softly he almost missed it. Why save me?" Daniel paused. He had no easy answer. He could have said it was justice or pity or anger, but the truth was deeper. He simply could not walk away. His humanity would not allow it. He held her closer and answered quietly, "Because someone must." Her lips trembled, and tears touched the corners of her eyes. She had been broken in front of thousands, treated as worthless, forgotten even by her own people. Yet here was one stranger, one human, who refused to let her go. For the first time in a long time, she felt the faint spark of life returning. The sound of boots thundered closer. Daniel knew the chase was only beginning. The Empire would not forget this insult. They would send hunters, soldiers, maybe even fleets to punish one man who dared to challenge them. But Daniel had already made his decision. He would carry her, protect her, and fight for her no matter the cost. He found a narrow passage leading out of the arena's lower tunnels. The shadows stretched long, the air smelled of smoke and rust. Ahead lay the unknown, but behind lay certain death. He pushed forward, holding her tighter, every step burning with resolve. The girl drifted in and out of consciousness, her small voice whispering broken words he could barely understand. Yet in her weakness, she clung to him. Her fingers brushed his chest, gripping his shirt faintly as if afraid he might disappear. Daniel's mind was set. She was no longer just a stranger. She was his responsibility now. His vow was silent but strong. She would live, and he would make sure of it. And, as the alarm screamed across the city, the legend of the human who refused to let her die had only just begun. The city outside the arena was alive with chaos. Sirens wailed across the night sky, lights flashed from every tower, and the voice of the arena master echoed through every street. The human has taken the cursed one. Stop him at once. He cannot. Leave alive! Daniel carried the girl close to his chest, her head resting weakly against him. Each step felt heavier as the sound of marching soldiers closed in from every direction. The streets were filled with alien civilians watching in shock. Some whispered in fear, others pointed in anger, and some even threw stones as Daniel ran past. But none dared to help. The girl stirred faintly. Her lips moved as though she was trying to speak, but only a broken whisper escaped. Daniel leaned close to hear. Her voice was trembling, but he understood one word. Danger. I know, Daniel whispered back, tightening his grip. But I won't let them take you. He turned a sharp corner and dashed into a narrow alley. The metallic walls dripped with oil and steam hissed from broken pipes. It smelled of rust and smoke. Daniel pressed his back against the wall, breathing heavily, his ears sharp to every sound. The girl's shallow breaths brushed against his chest. He knew she didn't have much strength left. He needed to find a safe place. Fast. Suddenly, heavy boots struck the ground nearby. A patrol of soldiers marched past the mouth of the alley, their rifles glowing with blue energy. Daniel held his breath, shielding the girl in his arms. For a tense moment, it seemed the soldiers might turn and look. But they continued on, shouting orders to search the other streets. Daniel exhaled slowly and moved deeper into the shadows. His eyes scanned every corner, every exit. He had survived war zones, but this was different. He was alone, hunted in a foreign city, carrying someone who could barely stay alive. The girl's eyes flickered open again. Her gaze was faint, but she looked up at him as if trying to understand why he was doing this. Her lips trembled and she whispered, "You risk death." Daniel looked down at her and gave a small, tired smile. "Better me than you." She blinked slowly, and for the first time a fragile spark of trust shone in her eyes. The distant hum of engines grew louder. Daniel looked up and saw drones sweeping through the sky, their red searchlights cutting across the buildings. He pulled the girl closer and ducked under a collapsed scaffold, crouching low as the beams of light swept just inches above his head. The girl's body tensed, but Daniel held her steady, whispering, "Quiet. Stay with me." The drones passed, but Daniel knew it was only a matter of time before they returned. He needed to get out of the city. Somewhere beyond the walls, freedom might still exist, but the path was long, and the enemy was everywhere. He pressed forward again, slipping through abandoned markets and silent corridors. The crowd had thinned, but whispers of his defiance spread like fire. Some aliens looked at him with anger, others with awe, but none stepped forward to stop him. Then, from the shadows, a group of armored soldiers appeared, blocking the street ahead. Their leader pointed a glowing blade at Daniel. Human, you have no place here. Drop the girl and perhaps you will live. Daniel's arms tightened around her fragile body. He could feel her heartbeat against his chest, weak but alive. His jaw set hard. I told you already, he said coldly. She will not die. The soldiers advanced. Daniel's eyes scanned the area quickly. The street was narrow, the walls high, but a broken stairway led upward to the rooftops. It was risky, but it was their only chance. As the soldiers closed in, Daniel shifted his weight and dashed toward the stairs. Laser fire exploded behind him, burning holes into the walls. He shielded the girl with his own body as sparks rained down. His boots pounded against the metal steps, carrying him higher and higher until he reached the roof. The night air hit him hard. The city stretched wide beneath the stars, glowing with fire and chaos. Searchlights crossed in every direction, sirens screamed from towers, and far in the distance he saw the walls of the city. Beyond them lay the wild lands, his only hope. But the soldiers were climbing after him. More drones were approaching. He was running out of time. The girl stirred again, her weak hand gripping his shirt. Her voice was faint but clear enough this time. Why? Protect me. Daniel looked down at her, his face shadowed by the glow of distant fires. He could have said many things. That it was justice, that he hated cruelty, that no one deserved such pain, but instead he gave her the simplest truth. Because you are alive, and as long as you live, there's hope. Her eyes widened slightly, as if his words had struck something deep inside her. She tried to speak again, but her strength gave out, and she slumped against him. Daniel's heart hardened. He turned toward the city walls, his eyes fixed on the horizon. He knew the Empire would send every force they had to hunt him, but he also knew one thing with certainty. He would not stop, no matter how many stood in his way. The escape had only begun. The rooftops groaned under Daniel's boots as he ran across them, the broken girl clutched against his chest. The city stretched wide under the night sky, glowing with fire and steel. Drones hummed in the air above, their red lights sweeping back and forth like hunters' eyes. Soldiers climbed the walls behind him, shouting, firing bolts of energy that cut through the darkness. Daniel's lungs burned, his arms ached, but he did not stop. He knew if he slowed for even a moment, they would both die. The girl stirred weakly against him, her fragile body trembling. Her lips moved, and a faint whisper escaped. Stop. You'll die. Daniel shook his head. Not tonight. Not while you're still breathing. He reached the edge of the rooftops and leapt down into a narrow alley below. His knees shook with the impact, but he landed steady. The shadows were thicker here, the noise of the chase a little farther away. For a brief moment, silence wrapped around them. Daniel crouched and leaned the girl gently against the cold wall. Her skin was pale, her breath shallow, but her eyes were open now, faint glimmers of life flickering in the darkness. She stared at him, as if trying to measure the weight of the stranger who risked everything for her. You should have left me, she whispered. Her voice was cracked, almost broken, but there was steel hidden in her tone. They will kill you. For me. Daniel looked back at her, his eyes calm but steady. Maybe, but I made my choice. She studied him in silence for a moment, her breathing uneven. Then her gaze lowered and she whispered something he almost didn't hear. I'm not just an orphan. Daniel's eyebrows furrowed. What do you mean? Her lips trembled, but she forced the words out. I am the last of my line. My people. My family. They ruled once, but the Empire destroyed them. They wanted to erase us, erase me. That is why they broke me in front of everyone. So, no one would remember. The air seemed to freeze. Daniel stared at her, his mind racing. She was not just a broken child, not just a forgotten orphan. She was the last thread of something greater, something the Empire feared. Her eyes shimmered with tears. If I die, my people die with me, their memory, gone. That is what they want. Daniel's jaw tightened. Suddenly, everything made sense. The cruelty of the arena, the fury of the master, the desperate hunt. This girl was not just a victim. She was a threat to their power. Keeping her alive was not only saving her, it was defiance against an empire. He reached forward and gently placed his hand over hers. Then we will not let them win. Her eyes widened slightly, surprise flickering across her bruised face. Why? Why would you fight for me? You owe me nothing. Daniel's voice was quiet but unshakable. Because you are alive, and because sometimes the smallest life carries the biggest hope. You are more than what they did to you, and if I walk away, then I am no better than them. Tears slid down her cheeks, but this time they were not tears of despair. They were tears of something she had not felt in years. Hope. The distant roar of engines pulled Daniel's attention back. A wave of armored carriers was moving through the streets, their lights cutting through the night. Soldiers poured out in formation, their weapons glowing, their voices echoing with the command to capture them. Daniel's moment of quiet was gone. He lifted her into his arms again, her head resting against his shoulder. She felt lighter than ever, fragile as glass, but inside her a fire had begun to stir. For the first time since her fall, she wanted to live. He pushed forward through the maze of alleys, searching for any path that would take them closer to the walls. His eyes caught the faint glow of an old transport tunnel ahead, half collapsed, forgotten by the Empire. It was dangerous, unstable, but it was a way out. The girl's voice rose weakly against his chest. You do not understand. They will never stop. They will send hunters, they will send fleets, they will burn world to end me. Daniel's steps did not slow. His voice was calm, but filled with steel. Then let them come. I will not hand you to them. Her small fingers clutched his shirt, and for the first time her voice carried strength. My name is Lysara. Daniel looked down at her, repeating the name in his mind. Lysara, the last of her bloodline, the one the Empire tried to erase. Her name was no longer just a whisper, it was a promise. The alarms grew louder, searchlights flashing against the rooftops. Soldiers shouted, closing in. Daniel's legs burned, but he pressed on, his heart beating like a war drum. The Empire thought they had broken her. But in saving her, he had awakened something they had tried to kill forever. Hope. And hope was more dangerous than any weapon. The night sky burned red with alarms as Daniel carried Lysara toward the edge of the city. Behind them, soldiers poured into the streets, drones swarmed overhead, and searchlights tore through the shadows. The Empire had unleashed its fury, and all of it was aimed at one human and the broken girl in his arms. Daniel's breath came hard, his muscles screaming, but his grip never loosened. Lysara's fragile body pressed against him, her eyes half open, whispering his name for the first time. Daniel. Her voice was weak, but it carried trust. He looked down, his face calm despite the storm. I'm here. Hold on. Ahead, the outer wall of the city rose like a mountain of steel, guarded by armored soldiers and heavy cannons. Escape seemed impossible. But Daniel's eyes burned with a fire the Empire could not understand. He would not turn back. Not now. The first squad blocked his path. Human, the commander roared. Drop the girl, and you may yet live. Daniel set Lysara gently behind a broken pillar, then stood tall, facing the soldiers alone. He had no army, no fleet, no allies. Just his fists, his will, and the promise he had made. The soldiers raised their weapons. Energy bolts lit up the night. Daniel moved like a storm, rolling aside, striking with ruthless precision. He tore a rifle from one soldier, smashed another to the ground, and kicked a third into the wall. His movements were sharp, filled with desperation but also purpose. Every strike was for her. Every step was defiance. But there were too many. Dozens more poured into the street, their weapons glowing brighter. Daniel's chest heaved, his arms bleeding, but he stood his ground. Behind him, Lysara watched with wide eyes, her heart pounding. No one had ever fought for her like this. No one had ever stood between her and death. The commander sneered. "You cannot win, human. You are only one man." Daniel's eyes burned, cold. Sometimes, one is enough. With a roar, he charged again, striking with the fury of a cornered beast. The soldiers faltered, shocked by his unbroken will. Even wounded, even outnumbered, he refused to fall. His fists crashed against armor. His stolen rifle burned through shields. For every soldier that struck him, he struck back twice as hard. The crowd of civilians gathered at the edges of the street watched in stunned silence. This was no ordinary fight. This was a human standing against an empire, not for himself, but for a girl they had all been told was worthless. And yet, in his defiance, they began to see something else. Truth. Lysara forced herself to rise. Her legs trembled, her body weak, but her eyes burned with new strength. She saw Daniel bleeding, staggering, yet refusing to yield. Her voice broke through the chaos, louder than she thought possible. "Stop!" The soldiers froze for a moment, glancing at her. Her voice carried weight, not because of strength, but because of who she was. The last of her line. The one the Empire had tried to erase. Daniel turned his head, his eyes meeting hers. For a moment, time slowed. She stood there, fragile but unbroken, her spirit shining. And in that moment he knew it had all been worth it. The commander snarled and raised his blade. "She is nothing. End her." Daniel's rage exploded. He lunged forward, his body a blur of motion, tackling the commander with brutal force. They crashed to the ground, the blade clattering away. Daniel's fists rained down, fueled by every ounce of fury and resolve. The commander gasped, tried to rise, but Daniel struck him down, ending the fight. Silence fell. The soldiers hesitated, their eyes shifting between their fallen leader, the human standing tall, and the girl who refused to die. Daniel staggered back to Lysara, blood dripping from his wounds. He knelt beside her, his voice low but firm. "It's over. You're safe." She shook her head, tears running down her cheeks. "No, it's only beginning. You don't understand. Saving me means war. They will never forgive this. They will hunt you forever." Daniel managed a tired smile, brushing the dirt from her face. "Then let them hunt. I don't care. As long as you live, I'll fight." Her breath caught, and for the first time, she truly believed it. This human, this stranger, had given her back more than life. He had given her back hope. The soldiers did not advance. The civilians whispered among themselves. The story was already spreading. A human had stood against the Empire. A girl they had broken had risen again, and in their hearts, a spark of rebellion flickered. Daniel lifted Lysara in his arms once more, his gaze fixed beyond the walls. The night was still full of danger, but the choice had been made. He would not let her die. And from that night forward, the galaxy would remember. The Empire had tried to erase her, but one human's defiance changed everything.